So let's take a look at what AlertMeter does. Really what we're talking about is it's a fit for duty test that operates on a touch screen or on a mobile device, and it takes about 60 seconds to execute. We're going to go ahead and show you now what it looks like to take the AlertMeter test, and in this environment it might be somebody coming in at the beginning of a shift and going to a tablet, but they can also execute this device on their mobile phone right before they start shift or whatever time you deem that you would like to have them do that. Let's go ahead and play this, Landon. So obviously a login, and usually we'll tie that to an employee ID or something that's unique. Confirm that this is who you are. And we also have COVID-19 questions that are in here. So these are based on questions from the CDC. If your organization has another set of questions that you may want to ask, we can include those as part of the AlertMeter deployment so that you get that screening at the very beginning. And now we're taking the test. And what you see is basically this grid pattern. And the challenge is select the shape that's different, or if they're all the same, you're going to click the green button that's over on the right. You have 6 seconds to answer each question, and there's a total of 21 questions in the test. So most people, once they get comfortable taking the test, can do this test underneath 60 seconds. The other thing that's unique on this is we're not scoring against a whole population of people. We're only scoring against yourself. So you have to take the test at least 10 times over the period of 3 days. And once you've done that, you establish what we would call a baseline, and that's your baseline of performance. And that baseline is based on quite a few factors beyond just, can I get the question right, or how quickly can I answer the questions. Here we're finishing up the COVID-19 questions. Yes, I answered no to all of the questions, complete the test. And you can see here where we scored, and you can see on May 17th, we had a down day. We would call that outside normal range. Now, if somebody scores outside of their normal range, there's generally a company protocol that goes into place. Normally they'll say, okay, take the test the first time, and really what we're looking for is, can you perform to your normal cognitive ability? And if you can't, we're going to give you 5 minutes to take the test a second time. One of our speakers on the call today, and I'm not sure if Carol is here, but this is actually a graph from her. She takes the test on a daily basis. And Carol, do you want to chime in real quick and just talk about what happened to you here?
Sure. So this is my test scoring graph. I've been taking the test for several years, and as you can see there down on May 18th, I had 2 red scores, which meant I could not test within my normal range. The day before, a close person in my family passed away, and I spent the whole day talking to people. I was exhausted, but when I woke up the next day, I thought, you know, I can get through this. I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. And the AlertMeter caught me being exhausted and distracted to the point where I've been taking this test for several years, I couldn't score normally. If I had been doing something that would have been dangerous or at risk for other people, I could have caused an injury because I couldn't stay alert.
So we see this is actually a fairly atypical type graph that you might see with your workers. And in the case of Carol here, where she had the 2 red marks, I'll give you another example in an industrial setting. We had a steel company that basically processes steel coils. Gentlemen came to work in the morning, and before they put AlertMeter in, basically it was go to work, go to your job posting, and within the first half an hour, your supervisor is going to check on you and make sure you're okay. Well, this particular day, they'd already put in AlertMeter. The guy came in, he clocked in, took the AlertMeter test, and he hit in the red, what we call outside normal range. He said, okay, I'm going to try to shake it off. Got a cup of coffee, got some water, tried to take it again. Similar result as what you see Carol here, 2 outside normal range scores in a row. His supervisor was then notified. So we send out a text message and an email to this worker's supervisor if they get these 2 hits in a row, basically just saying, go have a chat with this individual. And it's in that chat, that this particular instant, that they discovered that this guy's son had gone into the hospital the night before with a terminal heart condition, and he hadn't slept in over 36 hours. When he was asked, why did you come to work? The answer was, well, because I'm the breadwinner and I have to come to work and I have to make money. And they said, well, you know, today let's either put you on a different job or let's go ahead and send you home with pay. What's really will send chills down your spine is his job was to operate a 150-ton crane moving steel coils across the floor where there's a lot of equipment and a lot of people working. So that's what AlertMeter does, is it looks for more than just impairment from drugs and alcohol or lack of sleep. It's really what's going on in my head. Can I get focused? Landon, let's go to the next slide. So here you can see another view. I mentioned just previously that we send out notifications when somebody scores outside their normal range 2 times in a row. And you can see that at the very top there where that happened with Murphy Brown. In that instance, the notification was sent out, but also Murphy's supervisor can go into a dashboard at any time and see how their crew is doing. You can see that Murphy was outside normal range, and Barty is supposed to be on shift today, but he has not yet taken the test. So we can also get notifications on that. You can see that George Washington was okay, but had to do a retest. So you might just check with George and see how he's doing. That means he got O&R the first time, and on the second time he scored just fine. But you'll notice that Alexander down at the bottom came in as guarded, and he also had a positive COVID-19 response. So with Alexander, initially the big deal there is the COVID-19, what's going on there. But also in the guarded status, oftentimes that's, as I mentioned earlier, where you personally are recognizing that you're fatigued. And we get this a lot. People say, well, I came in guarded and I was feeling tired. So yeah, that makes sense. It's when you don't notice your fatigue that you oftentimes come in outside of normal range. So how does AlertMeter create a score, and what is really what's that based off of? Well, as you saw earlier, it looks like it's obviously on how quickly you can answer a question, how accurately can you answer a question, but it also takes into factors around situational awareness and very consistent cognitive behavior. Again, we're building a personal baseline on how a person takes the test. And if they score outside their normal range, what's happening is we're letting the decisions land then at the supervisor and the management. AlertMeter is just telling you, these are the people that I may need to talk to today. Let's go to the next slide and we'll take a look at some of the science on this. So when we talk about consistent cognitive performance, you saw in the test that there's a variety of shapes, and there's multiple shape patterns. There's about 400,000 combinations of shape patterns that can come up in the test at any time. And the shapes might be rotated in different ways. We have over 70 million man hours of people that have taken this test. We've done a lot of our work in the mining community in South Africa. And I know the mining community is big for you guys in Australia as well. And with all that data, what we've been able to discover is that people in general will develop patterns that are very specific to them. So this medium shape family, these are shapes that this person generally has as kind of a hard time answering, but they always get through it pretty well. So we actually can build a baseline around their proclivity to answering very specific shape patterns. At the end of the day, this test is sensitive enough that we can detect when somebody's trying to take the test for somebody else, because of the deviations in their performance within very specific shape patterns and how they normally perform with those shape patterns. Let's go to the next slide. So what does it look like and how is it deployed? And here you can kind of see a good example of different ways that it's deployed, whether it's on a mobile device as part of a construction site or a remote worker, maybe in an oil field or whatever type of situation that might be. Again, you can set parameters on when the test needs to be taken each day. If it's inside of a facility, many times on the left there, you can see people have set up a bank of iPads or Android devices. It also works very well in the transportation industry. So if you're moving trucks and you're moving materials around the country, your drivers can take this test on either a mobile device, or in many cases, they can take it on the test on the device that's already in the truck, tracking their telemetrics and their ELD. So we've got some integrations in the trucking industry as well to help you make sure that your drivers have taken the test before they start to drive for the day. And that's very unique. There's a lot of things that'll sit in a cab that'll look in people's eyes, but there's really nothing that's going to give a driver or a worker the feedback to understand where they're at today and what they might do to counteract fatigue throughout the day. Let's go to the next slide. And again, we'll take a quick look. It's only a 60-second game. Most companies do it at the beginning of the shift. We have many companies that also will do it at the lunch break, particularly if they send people out for lunch or they have a mobile workforce. We had one really excellent example come up not too long ago with a worker who It's a very good story. When we did the training for this group, this particular worker sat in the back of the room, looked really pensive, came up and approached me after the training and said, look, these guys are trying to put this in just to get rid of me. I don't speak English very well, and I'm Spanish speaking, but I don't read Spanish. I don't read English, and I really don't use computers whatsoever. I'm going to really struggle with this thing, and they're going to fire me. He said, look, no, go ahead and give it a try. You can get through it. Well, he did. His name was Pedro. He was able to get through the test effectively and was able to develop a baseline. About 2 months later, I was keeping an eye on that particular site, and I saw Pedro came up with an ONR. Thought I'd just give the supervisor a call and see what was going on. And as it turns out, he was out working in a field. It was 105 degrees in Miami in the summertime, and he had forgot to take his water. He was severely dehydrated, and the AlertMeter test picked up on that dehydration. So that was a lunchtime test that he took. If we can go to the next slide. Again, can be used on any device, completed in 60 seconds. Kind of covered that already. Next slide. And this is one of the key things, is providing feedback. We get a lot of feedback from the workers that take the test that say, look, I've noticed that I've been coming in the yellow a lot lately. I'm kind of changing my bedtime pattern, or I told my wife that I'm not going to binge watch Game of Thrones this week, or I moved my night with my buddies where we get together and play cards or drink beer from Thursday night to Friday night because I don't work Saturday morning. So we do get a lot of feedback with people making very positive lifestyle changes because of the fact that they're much more aware, much more conscientious of their status when they get into work. And there's also a lot more safety conversations throughout the day when people are using the AlertMeter. One thing to let you know is generally we only see about 1.5% of all test takers will come up with an ONR in any particular day. So it's not like you're going to get a huge number of people that you have to address and talk to. It's a very low percentage, and the test is very, very sensitive to fatigue.
And when Jeff says ONR, what he means is outside normal range.
Thank you, Carol.
Yep.
Go to the next slide. Again, we talked about how the supervisor gets notification, and then it's the conversation that ensues that determines what the disposition of that worker is. Very rarely do people send folks home, except in cases of extreme fatigue or extreme situations. More often than not, they coach them through their fatigue. Hey, let's drink more water today. Let's do some more exercises in the middle of the day. Check in with them more often as the day goes on. Move them to a less safety sensitive job. So there's a lot of ways that you can deal with your workers that doesn't include sending them home. On rare occasion, there might be reasonable suspicion. Supervisor gets a notification, goes to meet with an employee and notices that their eyes are dilated or they smell like alcohol. And in that case, then yeah, we're going to existing company protocol takes into account. AlertMeter in and of itself is absolutely not a drug test, nor do we promote it as a drug test. It's just a way to get a top level screen to see if somebody's thinking straight and if they're struggling, to allow a supervisor to have a conversation and then make a determination. Next slide. Again, it's always based on company protocol, and in most cases, companies don't have to change their protocol whatsoever. They already have reasonable suspicion protocol. They already have protocol for what to do when you spot somebody nodding off during a safety briefing. They know what to do, and all that this is doing is stimulating those conversations.